Well, hello, it's Christy Darlington with Witnesses for Jesus, and I am here with my friend Marshall Almarode. Marshall's been doing ministry, helping people come out of the cults, particularly Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses, for the past, what has it been, 40 years, you think?
39.
39 years. Okay, well, it's been quite a while, certainly longer than I've been doing this, and I think you probably started back when I was just a little wee kid. So it's going to be fun to hear his stories and learn a little bit more of what he does in this ministry, how he got into ministering to cults. So here's Marshall.
Thank you, Christy. Yeah, so in 1983, my best friend challenged me to become a Mormon. Well, that was kind of an unusual thing because I really wasn't planning on being a Mormon. And I was vulnerable at the time because my dad had just died a couple of years earlier. And I noticed that I was very distraught. And I just didn't know what to do. You know, how do you cope with your dad dying, especially when he was my Abraham Lincoln? He was he's my hero. And so my wife bought me a little cross, and at work I'm wearing it now. And one day I'm down on the bottom of the reactor, worked in the radiation area, and I leaned over, and the cross swung out, and I saw that cross. I've been working there about 10 years already, and I thought, I never thought about God at work for the last 10 years. There's something wrong with that. And I'd heard that kids have been bringing their Bibles to school. I thought, well, they can bring their Bibles to school. That wasn't on the radar when I was a kid. I thought, well, I can bring a Bible to work. So I brought a Bible to work. I set it on the table, and all of a sudden I became the Bible answer man. What's the Bible say about baptism? What's the Bible say about homosexuality? What's the Bible say about everything? It was amazing. And the first person walked in and said, "What's that?" And it was on my table. And I said, "Oh, that's a Bible." "Well, whose is it?" "It's mine." "Well, what's it doing here?" And then my boss said, "Well, it's a violation of church and work, not church and state, church and work." It's like, right. So I mean, I had to tell my boss that, this is America, and as long as we still have the Constitution, we have freedom of speech and freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. So it's not a separation like we can't have religion in schools, we can't have religion in where we go. It's part of us. Whatever you believe, everybody believes in something. Even if you say you believe in nothing, that's something. So, everybody believes in something. So I've got this Bible, people are coming in and talking to me, and all of a sudden my best friend, he's a few years younger than me, Mark McAllister, a guy leaves, and I've been giving him, some information from the Bible. And Mark's watching all this, thinking they should be coming to him, I presume. Well, he says, "Marshall, you're just this close. All you need to do now is come over to Mormonism, and you'll be there." Well, ever had something like that happen to you? It's like, wait a minute now. I hadn't planned on that. It wasn't like, in the Bible at the end it says, now you're going to have to talk about Mormonism. I'm talking Bible. It's not even on my topic, I said, well, I don't believe it's true. He said, well, do you know if it's false? Well, I believe it's false. He says, you need to know, Marshall, if it's true or false. It's like, I'm a math major. The logic got me. So I said, okay. He says, well, I'll get you a Book of Mormon. I said, no, I got one at home. And so I still got that Book of Mormon. It was a buddy of mine's. Somebody gave it to him, and he was throwing it away, and I just grabbed it. And so this is my Book of Mormon that I had back in those days. First book I ever had on Mormonism was a Book of Mormon. It's a triple combination is what they call it. You got the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. So I got the thing out, and, I'm not a reader. I don't like to read. I didn't do really well in English and, math and stuff I was great at, and science, but English was not my best. So I had to study real hard to get B's and A's. And so, it's like, I don't really want to read. I wasn't a fast reader. I ran out of time in the time test. So anyway, my history wasn't, my Boy Scout troop was my Mormon buddies invited me. So I went, but nobody ever asked me to become a Mormon. I was 31 years old, and nobody had ever asked me to become a Mormon, so he asked me. So I went home and prayed, the Moroni 10, 4, and 5 thing. And so I prayed, and that's the Mormon evangelism verse. It's like our John 3:16, only it doesn't talk about the Bible. It doesn't even talk about Joseph Smith or Jesus. It talks about the Book of Mormon. So you think about the title and the topic there and everything. So we're going to go into their evangelism verse, and we'll just do one whole section on the evangelism verse. And you're going to see that it's amazing what they don't tell you. So here we go. Anyway, so I went and the Boy Scout troop for the Mormons. And the first time I ever heard that Mormonism was really wrong was my mom told me, you can't join the Mormon church. I came home from a Boy Scout thing, and I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, you can't join the Mormon church. I said, why, Mom? Because it's wrong. Well, why is it wrong? Because I said so. I don't know if you can relate to that, but as a 13-year-old or whatever about, I can relate to because I said so. It's like the next thing's not going to be good, right? So that was my introduction to Mormonism by my mom. And so she didn't know why. I mean, nobody knows why, right? So I just couldn't find anybody. Well, I'm in college now, and there's a guy named Walter Martin comes to my church, right? And I missed it. It was like Monday through Friday, and I get there Sunday and go, hey, did you come to Walter? I go, Walter who? Walter Martin, who's that? He wrote The Kingdom of the Cults. And I said, okay, fine. Let me show you his book. Hold on. So I actually have a first edition of Walter Martin's Kingdom of the Cults. This is the first edition. And I'm pretty proud of it. It took me about 35 years to get one, so I just got it recently, as you can probably tell. So Walter, he had the Jehovah's Witnesses down, the Mormons, all kinds of people down there. And so I thought, if anybody knows why Mormonism is wrong, it must be that guy. And so I got the tapes. It was cassette tapes back then from the library, listened to them, The Maze of Mormonism. I thought, man. And so I made copies. I had made a tape copier myself, and I made copies. And so I still have those copies today. My dad had just died in 81, and then 83 Mark invited me to become a Mormon. And so I went home and I prayed, said, God, if Mormonism is true, I need to be a Mormon just from God. And if it's not true, then I need to know why it's not true. It's because I got a lot of Mormon friends, and they're going to go straight to hell if it's not true, if it's not from God. So the whole thing, I realized the impact of, whether it's true or not. And so I said, God, if I don't go to Mormon heaven or Christian heaven or whatever it might be, it's going to be your fault, because I'm going to go look into it. And and if you don't guide me the right direction, when I find out, I'm going to tell everybody. So I'll be the most nauseating Mormon you ever heard, because I'm going to be going door to door or whatever, and tell them how, you need to join the Mormon church, or I'll be helping the Mormons out, whichever it is. I don't know what it is, because I didn't know. And for the next 5 years, I went through all kinds of Bible studies and all kinds of places. I had 2 pastors tell me Mormonism's Christian. It just don't agree with everything they do. It's like, really? Well, the Godmakers movie came out about 2 or 3 weeks later. And I went and saw a guy named John L. Smith. He was in the movie, and he was taking it in my local town. And I met John, and I said, well, John, you seem to know that Mormonism is wrong. And, the missionaries tell me it is right. So who am I supposed to believe? He says, the only thing you do, Marshall, is you go and you check out what they say. If I say something, go look up the references and see if I'm telling the truth. He says, then you'll know who's telling the truth, and you'll know who's right. I don't like to read, John. He goes, do you want to know the truth or not? So there I have this library. So you can see the library behind me. We'll talk about that in a bit. Basically, as I looked at the Bible and the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, I found some verses. And the first verse was Dr. Walter Martin's life verse, Jude verse 3. Earnestly contend for the faith, which was once and for all given to the saints. So you can't contend against the air, it's nothing. But if you can push against a bookshelf, because you can contend against it. So the fact that you're contending against something means that there's something contending against you. So there's 2 sides to this. So earnestly contend for the faith means somebody's contending against the faith. So that means you're supposed to be out there saying, no, that's wrong, and yes, that's right, and no, that's wrong. Yes, you're supposed to decide right from wrong. The Bible's written for us to tell what right and wrong is. So people tell you, well, you can't ever tell what right and wrong is. Wrong. The Bible's, we have to judge right from wrong. So there is a judgment we need to do. The Bible says stop making a wrong judgment and make a right judgment. So read the rest of the judgment verses, and you'll see we're supposed to judge right from wrong. So Titus 1:9 was my next one. It's hold fast, hold firmly to the trustworthy message as it has been taught, so you can encourage others with sound doctrine. That'd be the truth. And this is what Christians don't want to hear. Refute those who oppose it. That's NIV. Refute those who oppose it. If you're reading King James, it says convince the gainsayers, which is not quite as clear in modern English as it was back then in 1611. So refute those who oppose it is clear. In other words, I'm supposed to be against those who are doing things that are wrong. That's what Jesus did. That's why he was so popular they didn't have to crucify him, because he was against all the stuff that was bad. Well, the guys doing the bad stuff were the guys that crucified him, because the good guys weren't doing that. So there you go. That's the way it works. So then there's a verse in the Doctrine and Covenants that I want to read, so I'm going to grab this real quick. and it's D&C 71, 7, and 8. And we have our verse that tells us we're supposed to witness. Guess what? The Mormons have theirs too. Here's what it says. Wherefore confound your enemies, call upon them to meet you both in public and in private. And inasmuch as ye are faithful, their shame shall be made manifest. And then the verse 8 says, therefore, let them bring their strong reasons against the Lord. And I have strong reasons against the Lord of Mormonism. I think he's a false Lord. And so we have to look through that and decide what we're doing. So as I'm looking through and learning, I'm making a lot of mistakes. And one of the first mistakes I made is the one most Christians make. I started with the Bible. Oh, let's go to Isaiah 43:10. See, there's no God formed before me or after me, so there's only one God. See there? Well, the Mormons don't believe Isaiah is correct, so it doesn't really matter to them. You can find all kinds of verses in the Bible. It doesn't matter. So much like Ray Comfort. Ray uses the law to convict the sinner of his sinfulness. We use the Mormon literature to convict the Mormons that it's wrong. So they convicted that they get lost. So I learned that my first job is not to save them. My first job is get them lost. Because until they're lost, they don't need salvation. So I got a story about that. And what it is like, I was a lifeguard. Okay, so I'm going to grab something real quick. A little salvation buoy, right? And so, you carry this out there, and the people don't ground you. They grab the buoy, and they fight the buoy, not you. So you learn that as a lifeguard. And I can think of this idea. It came into my mind. It didn't really happen this way. But let's just say I'm out there on the beach, and you're getting close to a riptide. A riptide's, the sand's like this, and then all of a sudden it goes down. It's actually a sharp line. I've been a scuba diver, so I know what it looks like. And the current is strong enough, it takes your feet off from under you. So if you step into that, your feet go off from under you, and you go down underwater, and bloop, 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 it's kind of getting over, right? And you can't push your feet down to get back up because it pulls your feet off from under you. So it makes it really tough to get back up. But let's just say, I know you're getting close, so I go over there and I save you before you actually stepped in. And the wave hits you, you get all this water in your mouth, it's like, and so you go to my boss and you go, stupid lifeguard tried to save me. I wasn't lost, And so, it's like I get a letter in my file and they tell me don't save people who aren't lost, right? What are you wasting your time for? Okay, so the next day I see you out there and you go, hi, stupid lifeguard. We're having fun throwing frisbee with our family. Yeah, leave us alone. And so I just kind of wander out there, not looking at you, but I wander out a little closer and keep getting closer. And then the thing happens, you go into the undertow and you come up the first time, help, lifeguard, and I let you go back down again the second time. And the third time, you didn't get a breath. It was just too late. Didn't get a breath. And at the last moment, it's over. I reach down, pull your hand up, and I save you, right? And you get the waves that hit you. You get all that thing going on. It's the same scenario. You go talk to my manager. This time you go, oh, he's such a good guy. He saved my life. Oh, why? The only difference is you finally recognized you were lost. Huge difference. And that same kind of thing happens here when we witness to the lost. They have to realize they're lost before they want to get saved. Why would I want to get saved? I'm perfectly fine. I'm okay. I'm better than that guy. So we want to get them lost first. So how do I do that? Well, there are 3 keys, I think, of all faiths. So I compare faiths. And the 3 keys, you'll know these 3 keys. They're not in a verse in the Bible, but you'll know what I'm talking about when I tell you. The 3 keys are, first, your source of truth. So with Christians, it's not the pastor. It's not mommy and daddy, okay? It's the Bible. We go to the Bible because God's message to us. And we learn by reading the Bible and studying the Bible. And tells us about who God is and tells us how to get to heaven. Those are the second 2 keys, second and third keys. So our source of truth teaches us who God is and how we're saved. So if you go to the Quran, you're going to get a different method of salvation and a different God. 72 virgins isn't in the Bible. It's not the same method, okay? If you go to the Catholic Church, you got a pope, right? He's going to give you a different method of salvation. What is that? Well, I ask Catholics a lot, how many of your sins did Jesus not die for? And the Catholic has to say all my venial sins. I have to go to the purgatory to suffer for all my venial sins because Christ didn't die for those. Different gospel. How many Jesuses are there in the Catholic Church? So you look at all these different religions. They have multiple Jesus, by the way. It's polytheism cloaked as Trinitarianism, much like Mormonism. So I learned these things as I'm going talking to Mormons in Salt Lake. I ran into a Seventh-day Adventist. And I just studied Galatians chapter 3. So over and over again, you look at these different things. And I said, how about this verse? All who rely on observing the law are under a curse. For the Bible says, for cursed is everyone who does not continue to do everything written in the book of the law. You can't sin once. Continue to do everything written in the book of the law. I said, I don't think you've done that. He goes, yeah, you're right. So it's like there's a problem with the Seventh-day Adventists. They're trying to keep at least one of the laws. And there's not one you can keep. You're not going to keep the Sabbath perfectly. You walk too far. Your pastor probably worked on the Sabbath, because that's Sabbath. He's probably giving the preaching and he's doing the work, right? Sorry, that's a violation, and he's the head dude violating this. So I don't know I don't know how you get around that. So those are my my 3 keys of all faiths. Again, if you learn these 3 keys, you've got my Mormonism 101 class down. I teach a class, Mormonism 101, Calvary Chapel Bible College. And it's key number 1 is your source of truth. It'll teach you who God is and how you're saved. Those are the key issues of any faith, and you compare them, and it's obvious there's only one that has a free gift. All the rest you must earn or be worthy of.